Now, luxury apartments are flying off the shelves. Nifty Realty Index is up. It's up more than 100% if you look at the kind of moves over the past 1 year. But it begs the question, how many people today can afford apartments upwards of 1 crore rupees? Is the middle class being priced out of the realty market? We're going to discuss this with experts joining us on the show, both from industry and to get a larger perspective on the markets as they stand today in the realty estate. But first, let's get you this report on what the budget could do to meet the demand for affordable housing as it stands. Let's find out. My colleague Prakash Priyadarshi has been tracking what has been happening as far as the buzz in the budget is concerned, the push for affordable housing is concerned. And earlier from Delhi, he sent us this report. Here it is.
Yes, we are learning from our sources that the government is likely to make some big announcement for the housing sector in the upcoming budget. We are given to understand that the special focus would be provided to the affordable housing segment. In fact, the Ministry of Rural Development and the Ministry of Urban Development and Housing Affairs have sent their separate proposal to the Ministry of Finance. We are given to understand that the government is likely to make big allocation under rural and urban housing schemes. As you are aware, that the government has already made an announcement to launch a new housing scheme for urban poor and middle class in the interim budget, but it had not made any financial allocation under this scheme. Along with that, Housing Affairs Ministry and the Ministry of Finance were also working on the modalities which have now been completed. The sources are informing that the government is likely to make big allocation under this scheme, which could be in a range of 50 to 60,000 crore. Since this scheme is meant for urban poor and middle class, therefore, there is a proposal to provide a benefit of interest subvention to the beneficiaries, which could be in a range of 3 to 6%. Sources are also informing that the government is planning to provide financial allocation for construction of additional 3 crore houses across the country. Moving ahead, the sources are also informing that the government is likely to increase the overall financial allocation under PM Awas Yojana Rural by 15 to 20%, which is around 80,000 crore at this point of time. Since various state governments have submitted their separate proposal, and therefore the government is likely to increase the overall allocation under PM Awas Yojana Rural as well.
So yes, more affordable housing. Less than 2 weeks to go to the budget, a brand new one under the Modi 3.0 government. And like my colleague was pointing out, citing reliable sources that the housing sector is likely to get a substantial push this time. The outlay for housing will be up substantially. Let's find out and discuss what could happen, what the wish list from the real estate sector is, from luxury housing, from affordable housing. Dr. Niranjan Hiranandani, the founder and chairman of the Hiranandani Group, joining us. He's a Mumbaikar, and we're always happy to have his views on the real estate sector. And joining him tonight is Vivek Rathi, the National Director for Research at Knight Frank India. Gentlemen, thank you for making the time and joining us on India Tonight. Vivek Rathi, to you first. You know, after the pandemic, you tell us, how has India done in in the kind of push we've had for affordable housing? Where do we stand today in making homes that is within reach for the Aam Aadmi, both in urban India and rural India?
Coming out of the pandemic, the boom that we saw in the housing market has not been limited to the country. It has been a global housing sector boom, both in context to the volume of sales, development, and also pricing. Coming particularly to the India market, when you see over the last 3 years of the pandemic period, the initial part of the pandemic where the consumer sentiment towards home ownership were very positive. All of the segments of the market, starting from affordable to mid to luxury, participated in equal vigor. But as the momentum built between 2020 and 2023, what we saw is while the desire to purchase remained intact for all of these consumers, the ability to purchase was playing out very differently in the upper end of the market versus the lower end of the market. Clearly, with increase in home loan interest rates by close to percentage points, and also property prices over the last 3 years, is the lower segment, which has bore the brunt, even as the mid segment and the luxury segment continued to rally with the market momentum. As a result, on broadly, what appears is the affordable segment, which was more than half of the market volumes about 3 years ago, has shrunk to all less than a third, which is something which the industry will have to attend to.
Mr. Hiranandani is a representative. Sir, do tell us, why are we seeing this disparity that Mr. Rathi is pointing out? The disparity between desire and ability, especially when we talk about affordable housing in the country.
Vivek, thank you for inviting me to share my views. Let us look at the situation of the growth of the market, which has taken place in the last couple of years. All the segments were growing. The affordable segment was growing, the mid segment was growing, and the luxury segment was growing. All this has grown in the last 5 years by a compound of 10% compounded per annum. In the last 6 months to 1 year, it is definitely that the affordable segment has taken a hit. There are two basic reasons for it. The first basic reason is interest rate hike. The interest rates were about 6.5%, 6.4% for home loans. This has shot up to 8.7%. It's the 20% plus increase in home loan interest rates. Now, at the affordable segment, this has certainly come in the way of the capacity of affordable segment to do a hit. And of course, the fear has always been that interest rates will continue to go up. And that, of course, has not happened, fortunately. So that is the second, Vivek, is most important, is the fact that the PMAY scheme got exhausted somewhere around August of last year. The 1.1 crore housing, which was done through the private sector participation, got exhausted. So the entire target of 1.1 crore houses, which was first announced in 2014-15, got completed under the first portion of PMAY scheme. That is the reason, Vivek, we found that the Prime Minister, in the first cabinet meeting of Prime Minister Modi's 3.0, we found that the decision was taken to extend the PMAY scheme again by 1 crore housing in the urban area and 2 crore housing in the rural area. Now, this means that it is coming back again. And though the details have not been announced, whether there's any variation in the terms and conditions of that lending is not yet stated. But one of the expectation is that the limit of 45 lakhs is likely to be increased to 75 lakhs or 1 crore. So a large number of more houses will get covered in this new scheme as it says today. So these two factors have really given a hit. Number three, remember that the fund allocation has been announced, but it is only after the budget, which will take place after 2 weeks, will actually the monies and the scheme be floated to the financial institutions and to the public.
Right.
So obviously it means that in the last 6 to 9 months, no funds have been made available under this affordable segment.
Correct.
One more factor is
Yes.
the aspiration of the people have changed completely. After COVID, people have believed that the home is important. Earlier, during the week, they went to work. On the weekends, they were usually out. During COVID, they spent a lot of time in the house, and many of them worked from home. The children also studied from home over VCs. And that is the reason why this change has taken place in the aspirations of people wanting. So those who can afford a little bigger house have certainly done it. These are the reasons why it has happened. It is my belief that affordable housing segment will grow again, and it will grow even faster in the next couple of years. But the mid segment and luxury is also likely to grow as the GDP numbers will start growing. My target is that at least by the end of the year, you're going to see 8% GDP growth of the cities taking place, especially where infrastructure is going on in a very big way.
My question to Mr. Rathi as well, if mid and luxury continues to keep growing at the pace at which it has or even higher, looking at the kind of projections being made right now, would that kind of growth come at the cost of affordable housing? Because there is only that much land that is available. Land costs are consistently high. how much of this kind of push, even initiatives like the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, will it actually help? Because like Mr. Hiranandani is pointing out over here, we have exhausted that along the way. The Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, the outlay of it. Now, whatever push that may come through the budget, how much of that can actually get realized in this kind of scenario if medium, if premium and luxury housing keeps growing at the pace at which it has?
Certainly, the growth in mid and luxury segment, I would say, has not come at the cost of affordable housing, because the mid and luxury segments have grown on their own merits in terms of the ability as well as the desire of these consumers to buy. While I would certainly like to add, the development community and also the institutional investor community had participated, particularly in the mid and premium segment, because that is the segment which has higher sales velocity translating into better returns for private sector participants. But to say that has come at the cost of affordable housing would be premature, I would say. Now, to the other point that you made in context to the success of the scheme or the initiatives, which particularly say the CLS scheme, if it is renewed or revamped in a bigger manner, will it help? It will certainly help, because like I noted and Mr. Hirandani also highlighted, some of these schemes actually targeted to enhance the affordability of this consumer group. In the last cycle, over the last, say, 3 years, when the interest rates went up from 6.5% to 8.5%, the home loan interest rates alone led to a shrinkage of affordability for consumers by about 15%. Now, this shrinkage comes as a common factor for all the consumers, just that the lower segment finds it difficult to arrange for the enhanced down payment requirements, whereas the mid and premium segment consumers have recourse to other saving instruments, which goes into fulfilling their desire to purchase. So when a scheme like a CLSS or such scheme which directly is targeted towards the intended beneficiary augments the affordability of this consumer group, it certainly holds the potential to translate into housing demand and sales. We've already seen 3.5 crore houses developed, particularly under the PMA scheme over the last 9-10 years, while the housing for all by 2022 is an agenda which still remains, but it's got a little delayed. It will really depend on how much allocation the government does for it. 80,000 crore was the number last year. If the amount is enhanced by a meaningful measure, then maybe we're looking at accelerating the timelines to achieve the housing for all agenda. Otherwise, nonetheless, it's going to happen, but may happen over the next 5 to 10 years.
Gather more momentum in the growth of the affordable housing sector, Mr. Hiranandani, what do you perceive are the biggest pushes that are required at this stage? Some of the states have gone in for lower stamp duty as well. But in states like Maharashtra, it remains so high. We did get lower stamp duty as a result of the pandemic, and then we've seen that kind of more house purchases being done. Is that the need of the hour? When it comes to GST cuts as well, do you perceive the government pushing for more of those when it comes to the real estate sector? Where are the pushes most required?
You've hit the nail on the head. Look at the situation. Today, when you look at Mumbai, 50% of the cost of the house are revenues which go to the state and central government. The ready reckoner rate, the stamp duty rate, the additional FSI charges, the development charges which are there, all put together nearly come to 50% of the cost of the house. Number two, the ready reckoner rate is so high in all the places that in reality, you can't make an affordable house if you want to use the additional FSI. So it's not possible. You can't make it under the 45 lakhs limit which has been put. Hence, as far as cities of Mumbai are concerned, the unaffordability is created by the taxes done by the state and central government. So what is the solution?
Would you say, Mr. Hiranandani, allow me to interject, are you also suggesting that ready reckoner rates should not be as dynamic as they are in a city like Mumbai?
Well, the government makes more money out of increasing the ready rate, but it makes the land unaffordable.
Yes.
That is the situation which is there today. So what we really are in difficulty with, and fortunately for us, the solution is also known to the government. During the COVID time, they reduced the stamp duty and ready reckoner rate. They reduced it by 3% out of 5 and 6%. They reduced it by 3%. In the case of other charges, also development charges, they reduced it by 50%. At that point of time, the affordable housing segment during COVID time grew faster because of the situation that was given. Number two, every 2 years, 3 years, just now it's not done by the state government, they keep on increasing the ready reckoner rates in order to cover more taxes by the local authority, more taxes from the stamp duty rates, all these recovery. So in reality, it's every flat sold, almost 50% money will go directly or indirectly into government pockets or the local authority taxes or whatever it is. So, that's one of the reasons that has been done, which makes it unaffordable. And fortunately, solutions are available. Government knows about it. I'm hoping that the government will again come up back with the scheme where they reduce all these taxes by 50%. In reality, you must remember that the amount collected by the government went up when the taxes were reduced also. So it's not about the revenues coming down. The revenues will go up, but obviously a lot of more people will benefit. I think all this and more is required to be done both by the center and state government.
You're saying that the government knows. You're saying the solutions are known, Mr. Hiranandani.
Of course.
Why aren't they pushing for it? Especially when you are in election mode, assembly elections around the corner for many states. Why would you not want more people to get the homes of their dreams?
The reason is very simple. The bureaucracy puts up to the government, to the politician, that you will collect more money, which you can otherwise give for the doles which are required to be given to people. So in reality, what happens is the figures which are coming up is that when you reduce the rate of taxes, your collection will come down. In reality, it's the opposite. The day we had 90% tax, I'm talking about 35, 40 years ago, your tax collection was small. Today, when you reduce the rates of taxes, the collections go up because it's obvious that the volume of work which really goes up. But fortunately, it's already done. See, the situation is not about what is happening in terms of what we want to do about it. It's about already known figures which are known to the center and state government.
Yes. Well, if that is the case, at this point in time, Mr. Rathi, when you're talking about land, which is something that a lot of PSUs own, that is also being questioned in the sense that does the government need to let go of some of the land that it controls through defense, through railways? Is that also the need of the hour for more of this affordable housing to really take off?
So certainly, as a society, as a government, we recognize the need for fulfilling the housing for all agenda. And while fiscal allocation, direct fiscal subsidies to the intended beneficiary is one approach, but enhancing the supply of land, creating an ecosystem which really makes it possible is also something that the government has a bigger handle, particularly when it comes to land supply in some of these areas, or it is developing mass scale transit oriented infrastructure projects. So when it comes to land, while one can keep complaining about high land prices in major cities, but private landowners will continue to offer it for the best values. But when it comes to non-core land parcel for many of these government enterprises, whether it is the defense or railways or such entities, all of the non-core land, particularly in the major cities where there's a crunch of land, should be considered. It will have twin benefits of one, serving the cause for housing for all agenda, and second is asset monetization for these entities which generally find it difficult to manage debt burdens or to raise investments. Similarly, on the other hand, again, a big handle that the government has is developing large scale transit oriented infrastructure projects which connect not 1 or 2 kilometers but connect 50, 70 kilometers in these mega cities. And that is the need of the hour to enhance land supply in the peripheral areas where the price levels are much lower on a relative basis compared to city centers, as well as land supply is also in abundance. So, if attended, the private sector will eventually come in and participate when it comes to developing these houses.
What about the private sector and the development costs, Mr. Hiranandani? Of course, the government setting up the infrastructure and developing the kind of commute possibilities as far as expanding the scope in urban areas is concerned. Now, that's a given. But what about development costs as well? The cement sector is asking for GST reduction from 28 to 18%. Are measures like this also required, or do you think we've got enough going by way of control on development costs?
The more you control, the more you try to extract money from housing, the more you create slums in Mumbai. Already we have 50% of my population in the richest city in India having 50% people living in jhopatpattis and slums. And then you go and give them free houses. So what do? You first make your housing expensive by overtaxing it. So people can't afford the houses. So they go into jhopatpattis. Once they go into jhopatpattis, the election mode comes in, and then you give them free housing by making an FSI compensatory, which makes them available to afford. And they have taken over the government lands which are vacant, and the poor people or other people make those houses. Now, so you have to take a decision. Do you want to reduce the taxes and make it affordable so that less and less people go into jhopatpattis? Or do people who can even afford affordable housing and you go and make it unaffordable? That's a decision government has to take. It's a political decision. My view is very simple, that if you can make housing affordable by reducing the taxes, you will ultimately make more housing, more money, more employment, more everything, more collection of taxes and others. The people in jhopatpatti don't pay the taxes which are paid by the regular housing people if you buy a house. And half the people can actually afford a small house if you made it affordable. So that's a government decision. All these 25, 30 years, you have made housing so unaffordable over a period of years that everybody has to go and live in jhopatpatti and get a job in Mumbai. Now, that's a government decision. We can't possibly overwhelm these government decisions.
So when we make for in the budget, we want a political decision that is going to benefit better urban planning, because if we have to have an approach, it needs to be holistic to match our economic growth targets, like you're pointing out, because it's all interlinked. To be able to get housing that is affordable needs to be thought through from a more holistic aspect, and we'll see exactly how much of that push comes through in the budget this time. But what we're picking up from sources is clear that there will be that much more of a push towards affordable housing. How much we get is something that we are tracking very closely. Mr. Rathi, Mr. Hiranandani, always a pleasure getting your perspective. Thanks for joining us on India Tonight.
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to ET Now.